So introducing Jafreisy.
Stacey, aka the Black Barbie.
She the realist, you know.
Okay.
When you hear the word spirituality, what comes to mind?
When I think about spirituality, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is like my inner self and my connection to God and like what that looks like for me. It just feels very close to home, like my heart.
I would say my childhood comes to mind because I was raised very spiritual early on. So spirituality is a really big part of my life. It's the inner God, but also like God first and then the inner God. That's what I think.
A lot of things come to mind. I think that spirituality is vast. I think right now I'm establishing like a different sort of relationship to what that word means for me. It's meant it's meant a lot of different things to me throughout my life, or like when I started being spiritual, I guess. It all started for me, I think, like literally right when 2020 started. I had like this weird, like, I read a book about it. Like, it's like the awakening, I guess, where you just kind of feel called to yourself in like a way you've never felt before. And I definitely felt that. And then I read this book by this guy, I forget his name, but it just, opened my world up. And then I encountered a really negative experience with someone who, that was like their whole life, that was like their personhood, and just opened me up to the flip side of things. And there's a lot of people who use spirituality as like a mask or some sort of like reasoning for the way that they think. And I had a very personal experience with that. And I think it really, really like changed my whole relationship with spirituality. I think now in the more recent year, I developed a friendship with my former professor at college, and he is Buddhist. And I think that like a lot of our conversations revolve around like spirituality. And I think now I feel like a sense of like groundedness, I guess, when it comes to that, like what it means to me. It's very personal. I have like my own personal boundaries around spirituality and how I talk about it and like who I talk about it with.
Do you consider yourself to be a spiritual person? And if so, why?
I'm a spiritual queen. Like, girl, I feel like I'm spiritual because I genuinely take the time to do shadow work and heal. Like, I feel like spirituality is not all love and light all the time. Like, you have to face your shadows, you have to face your demons. And I think that I do a really good job at both. Sometimes I'm gonna have a good high and I'm gonna have a low, and I still balance it out the best way that I can. I also love to tarot read. I ain't gonna go lie to y'all. I've been doing that since I was 14 years old. And just because you have cards doesn't mean you're spiritual. I feel like it really is what's inside of you.
Yes, I do. I do because, well, honestly, I've always been on a journey, but I've really learned the essence of like spirituality in the sense of like your connection with God or a higher source. I think I'm a spiritual person because I connect to my intuition. I've always been very big on discernment and my gifts. I feel like I have a very big clairvoyant gift, and I've ignored it for a very long time, but connecting to myself, the God within myself, has allowed me to really grow spiritually.
I do consider myself to be a spiritual person. Why? Because I think I've just always been like that. I was just telling someone recently, like when I was a kid, I had a Muslim best friend, and I knew how to read the Quran because we were just so close. Like her mom would come over and like I just, would be there. And I remember I snuck into the mosque once and like did the whole prayer. I did the whole thing, like, and I was still, go to church on Sundays. So I feel like I've just always had a, very like free flowing relationship with spirituality. I don't feel attached to any sort of mindsets or religions, but I do feel very called to Buddhism, I would say, but I'm not really into like practice. I just meditate and I do pray. Just personal practices that I think make up my own relationship with that spirituality.
How has spirituality changed your life?
Spirituality has always been a part of my life. Like, I can't even say it changed my life because it's always been something that has been placed there. I think when I first started, it was more religious, like through church and going to Catholic school, but my mom was able to just let me develop into whatever I want. And I will say that, through meditations and sessions with other inspiring healers and light workers, I feel like it helped me get out of my depression and, my suicidal thoughts. And it also helped me realize that I'm on a self-love journey and it's not easy.
I was gonna say this, and also I'm a little petty. I'm like, niggas can't lie to me. Just kidding. Well, not only that I feel like it has allowed me to ground myself, but it's allowed me to center, really, really, really center myself. And like I said, ground myself. It allowed me to learn who I really am. I feel like I've pushed away my authentic self. And for the longest time, I feel like spirituality was calling me, but I was ignoring it. And once I really got into it, it allowed me to really learn who I was. It has changed my life for the better. Not only do I feel that I know the truth, but I feel connected to God. I feel that things are always working in my favor versus against me. I feel a little advanced, like I have like a bit of a upper hand with God and the universe.
Spirituality has changed my life for sure. I think when I first got into the whole ideology and like the first book that I read, it made me way more so like aware of like the world around me and like how I understood it, I feel I have like a deeper relationship with self, because that's really like a lot of the like older people who I've spoken to about things like this. Like, I remember I had a huge existential crisis my sophomore year, and because I thought I was going to go to hell or something. And then my therapist was like, don't you feel that you're already in hell? And that really like changed my life. Like it resonated so deeply, because like I really did feel like I was in hell. And the only person or the only force that I felt was, just like such a point of grounding for me was like myself, if that makes sense for me, because I have very like strict principles and morals and ideas around like how things should be. Yeah, so seeing myself in that way, I think definitely helped kickstart my relationship with spirituality, and ever since then, it's just kind of been like ever evolving and growing.
What challenges have you faced on your spiritual journey?
What haven't I faced? Really, like, y'all know. I would say first, the depression, believing that the voices in my head that are telling me like, you're not made for this, you're not good enough, like it's time to, go, that's not really me. And that's a negativity that's actually around me. I also feel like I have a hard time, always believing and keeping my faith up, because when things go wrong, like you just sit there like, really? So I feel like maintaining my faith has always been difficult for me, and just like tapping into myself. Like it's really hard not to, live in New York City and not be bombarded by so many different energies and so many different people telling you what to think, how to feel. But, I'm doing it now.
Giving up, literally giving up. It's hard. Spirituality is not an easy thing. It's literally challenging yourself to believe in yourself and motivating yourself consistently. There's no one else that's going to do it for you. So you have to constantly remind yourself, like, things are going to work out for you. Everything's going to be okay. And sometimes it gets rough because you don't really see the front of you or the back of you. And you have to tell yourself to keep going. So I think that's been my biggest challenge, is after waiting so long or fighting for so long, is believing that it's going to work out and keep fighting, just to have the drive to keep fighting. But I always do.
Sure. I think my background with Christianity has been like a huge hurdle. I grew up in the church. I was born in the church, and I grew up very Christian. And I think that a lot of people who grow up that way, are kind of set up for some crisis at some point that's going to hit them, just like being around very strict ideas around who God is, what God does. And just the whole, I feel like I had I had a relationship where it was like, I do this, so I get this. And I had to orient my ideas around that. And I think I still slip into the like, oh my God, nothing's going well for me, so God must hate me. That's like my biggest, most triggering thought. I think when it comes to spirituality, I still struggle with it. Like pretty recently, actually, I had like a breakdown about that. Like, yeah. So that's been like one of my biggest hurdles, just like having to struggle with that attachment that I still have with Christianity, because it brought comfort and like, something to me at some point. So I still kind of like cling on to that. And also, like, I think as human beings, we form habits. So like when you pray every night and you read the Bible and whatnot, and that brings you comfort, it's hard to like get away from that. It's not like I'm trying to get away from it, but I also know that it doesn't make me feel good. Like I don't feel good anymore. So I definitely think there's still a lot of work to be done around, how I feel towards spirituality and like my idea of it.
What is your advice to someone who may be experiencing those challenges right now?
My advice would be, don't be afraid of your shadow. Like actually look at what the problem is, look at what's making you feel this way, what's the pain, and actually sit in the pain. You can't run from it, you can't escape it. And you know what? If you have to close the door on spirituality, sometimes you just got to do it so you can hit rock bottom and build yourself all the way back up. And for those out there that are depressed and dealing with suicidal thoughts, my biggest advice is like, you have to believe that you're going to get out of it. No one else is going to help you. No one is going to understand. Sometimes we feel really alone, but you are strong enough to keep pushing every single time. You're strong enough to keep going. And you just have to find that light within you.
Oh man, I would say trust yourself. Listen to yourself. Isolate yourself for a little bit and then trust yourself. Because if there's anything that disturbs your spirituality, is outside noise. Really listen to your inner voice. What makes you feel good? Do whatever you feel like you need to do. Don't do anything for other people. Literally follow what's inside. If it makes you feel good, do it. If it makes you look crazy to other people, but you feel good, do it. Trust yourself is the biggest advice, because you are the only one that literally knows where you're going, your spirituality, your decisions, your goals, how it affects you, how you feel. You have to sleep at night. So you make yourself feel good, no matter what.
That's a tough one. I don't know. I've cried it out. Be crying it out. Background, I'm a Pisces moon. So I do be crying and shit. I cry it out. I think a lot. I journal. I definitely think, I've had conversations with Faith specifically that have made me feel like a lot better and just like more. I think having community is something really special. Being able to relate on things like that. I do like, it's not everyone that I share that with, I will say. Like, I definitely have made it a conscious decision to put boundaries up around spirituality and talking about it with other people who I feel may not completely understand. But I definitely do. I think that like the people who feel safe enough, definitely should be a part of that journey and like figuring out what you want to do, who you want to become. And that safety feeling, like it I don't think it happens with everyone, honestly. I only have like around like maybe like 2 people who I share that with, which is like, and Faith is one of them. And the other one is like so Christian. Our relationship is literally him like praying and I'm just like, amen. And that's it. So I feel like, and it does a lot for me. So I think definitely like if you can find community and safety in people, then definitely do that. Books are a really great resource as well. I love books. Sharon Salzberg is my new favorite author. She wrote Real Love, and it's just about like, it's like a spiritual take on, it's like all about love by Bell Hooks if it wasn't like a spiritual, like, you know, point of view. And that book definitely changed my life. So books, people, crying, meditating. Like meditating is low key hard, but I feel like once you get a groove, like you really start to see like why it's even a thing. I just got back from the Catskills, which I'm really grateful to even have access to that sort of experience, but definitely being in nature helps you feel closer to the universe around us. I recommend, you know, walks, breathing in and out, being present as much as you can, time, patience, acceptance.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.